So today I thought I could have a bit of a chat about coping with autism during lockdown number 3, and just ways and coping strategies that I find useful for me. So obviously there's not much we can do, so that's pretty rotten. Some of the things I enjoy doing, going out in my car and things that I normally do to cope with difficult events, I can't actually do because of the lockdown restrictions. However, it's really important to try and be creative in the ways you approach things. So an example for me is, you've probably noticed a lot of my videos are in my car. That's because my car is a place where I just find it really relaxing, very reassuring. It's somewhere where I can process things, have time to myself, take things in, and that kind of thing. So I'm in a job where I can continue working, so that gets me out the house. But sometimes I'll just spend allocated time just sat chilling in my car, and I often do it outside my house. So right now I'm just sat outside my house, so I'm not breaking any rules. I'm on land that I own, so I'm not breaking any rules at all. I'm staying at home and following the guidelines, but it's really important for me to sit in my car, even if neighbours think I'm strange. It doesn't matter. What matters is my mental well-being and mental health. So I would recommend for anyone to use things that just creative things that might help you. If it's sitting out in the garden in the rain, or just anything, like that's something I actually quite enjoy sometimes. I remember in the first lockdown there was a storm coming in, and I quite liked the sensory side of just standing out, seeing the storm and these clouds approach. Then it started raining. Obviously I didn't have an umbrella, because obviously you shouldn't have an umbrella when it's lightning, because that would be dangerous. But I remember I had like waterproofs on, and I just stood and embraced the rain and like the sensation of it. It was just so relaxing, and it's different. I wouldn't necessarily normally stand in the rain, but you've just got to be creative in your approaches. I think creativity is the key to trying to manage mental health side of things at the minute, and just finding those things that work for you. There's other strategies I'm trying to do, like take time to acknowledge and distract. That is super important. You need to acknowledge how you feel. Don't ignore it. If you ignore it, it's going to brew and build and build and build into a meltdown. That's not good for anyone. So you acknowledge the situation. You acknowledge how you feel. Acknowledging can be done in many ways. It can be writing it down. It can be chatting through with someone you trust. It could be just sitting there and taking time to think about it. Could be anything. Everyone has their own way of acknowledging something. Some people are chatty and discuss it. Some people it's internal, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong way. So once you've acknowledged it, then it's time to distract. So then do something you enjoy, something that regulates your mood. So for some people that could be watching a video of something they enjoy, like watching Lego movies, or watching train videos, or there's different ways in which you can do that. For me, it would be watching things on autism, because autism is one of my sort of special interests, and something that relaxes me is just kind of that intense focus where I just watch videos on autism. There's some great things on YouTube and some great people that I really enjoy watching, and I'll watch them constantly and like just feed new information and get a better understanding of autism and ways to cope with things. So that's something I personally do. I do actually also like watching train videos and some films and that kind of thing. So it's just letting yourself get immersed in those things, so you've not acknowledge and distract. Another useful coping strategy for me is the filing cabinet system. So the way this works is you have a filing cabinet and you have a rubbish bin. Now what you do is you think about the priority of what you're worried about, and you file it into either the filing cabinet or it goes into the trash. So an example of this would be, I'm really, really worried about having a COVID vaccine. Now, that's going to be a lot of wasted energy if I just let myself keep getting really stressed and wound up about it. So a way in which I could cope and manage a situation is I acknowledge, and then I put it in the filing cabinet, then I distract myself. And the reason it goes in the filing cabinet, not the rubbish bin, is because if I put it in the rubbish bin, I then forget about it, which I don't want to do, because if I completely ignore it, I'm just going to crash and have a meltdown, because I'm like, because I've just ignored it. Ignoring is never the answer. You need to acknowledge it at least a little bit. So acknowledge it, put it in the filing cabinet, and then when the time's right, and say I've got my vaccination invitation letter, get out the filing cabinet, sort out my appointment, put it back in the filing cabinet, and it goes away until the appointment. So the filing cabinet, the idea is to kind of get things in and out, to help you process with things one at a time. Because otherwise, if you had all your things in the filing cabinet out in a massive pile, you'd be like, where do I start? So you filter them all into the filing cabinet, and then you sort them one at a time when the time's appropriate. An example of the rubbish bin would be, I went out to the shops, and for instance, this happened to me the other day. I went into the shops and I was at self-scan checkout. I was trying to move out of someone's way because of social distancing. Like, I'm really, really stressed when people don't social distance properly. And I noticed someone was going to be in my way. So I moved out her way. I was being really polite, stepped back to respectfully give that distance. And she just basically walked past me, looked at me and went, and she was like really, really huffy with me. It really, really threw me. And obviously started to get wound up about it. But that goes in the rubbish bin because when you think about the situation in a bit more detail, you think, well, I'm never going to see her again. Some people were just stressful. She might have her own things going on. I don't understand what's going on. And at the end of the day, she's never going to remember me. She probably doesn't remember now. It's just obviously me and the way I think is focusing and fixating on that situation, wasting all my energy. So you pick it up and you go into the rubbish bin. One thing that I find really useful for me is something really winds me up. You can kind of imagine that kind of literal, just chucking it into the bin. So it could be just like that if it's just something small. But if it's something that's really wound you up, you can go, right, scrunching it up in your head and then you go, ah, kind of thing. And it's quite satisfying in many ways to just chuck it all away. And I do think that's really useful. And I think probably the last one I'd finish with today would be fixating on things and having a flexible attitude. So it's really important with everything going on in the world to have a flexible attitude, because something I'm really bad for doing at the minute is I will focus on what I can control, but I'll focus on it too much. And then that sets me up for disappointment, meltdown, overload. It's not a good position to be in. So the best way to try and get this flexible attitude is try to start to accept what you can't control. We've obviously had months and months of this now, so we've kind of all got an idea of what we can't control. But it's trying to focus on what you can control. And what you can control is simple things. For everyone it's different, but it could be something as simple as if you make your own meals, what you eat. That's an element of control. Or it could be the control of when you brush your teeth. It could be something really small. It doesn't have to be like a big, I plan an activity, I do this, which I love doing. It doesn't have to be that big. It can be just one simple little task. I can control when I go on my phone. I can control when I watch videos to regulate my mood. It can be anything. Just focus on those little things you can control, but don't fix on them too much. But it gives you that sense of control and just helps you adjust. Try to have that flexible attitude with bigger things, because if you find yourself getting so fixed on it, then you will set yourself up for disappointment. So I've actually got a wedding coming up in May. Now I could be fixed on this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But if I get so fixed on it's going to happen regardless, like, oh, Boris Johnson said that things will be better by spring, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If I start fixating on that, I'm going to set myself up for a massive disappointment. So the best thing for me to do is go, right, I am getting married. It's just a question of when. I hope it's in May, but if it's not, that's okay, because I'm still going to get married. It's just a question of when. So having that kind of challenging my perspective in this positive way is what can help you cope with things. It's just really, really important not to be too fixed, especially at the minute, because the more fixed you get, the more you're going to cause a meltdown. That's from my experience anyway. I think the important thing to remember is we are all different. Everyone copes differently. I'm sure many of you have always heard that with autism there is very different ways of coping with things, and there's no kind of linear way of coping. Every person I've met with autism, including myself, is different with the things we worry about. But generally speaking, the pandemic, everyone is worried about something. It's just what we worried and how heightened that worry is. Tends to vary a little between people, but that's okay. I think the important thing to remember is there is no right or wrong way of thinking, being worried about the situation, the lack of uncertainty. It's something that everyone is struggling with, and that's something I really tend to forget. I tend to forget that me and my autism, I tend to think it's, oh, I'm autistic, this is why I'm like this is why I'm struggling. But actually, when I break it down, a lot of people without disabilities or without autism, they are actually finding it hard too. It's just, for me, it might just be a bit more heightened, that's all. But we all understand each other in this situation. It isn't exclusive to autism, and I think I easily forget that sometimes. It's just to be patient with yourself and remember everyone is struggling for different reasons. We're all in the same boat, if you want to put it that way. But I know what it is. We're all in the same storm, but we're all experiencing a different journey on that boat. So you can imagine the sea, and you can imagine loads of little boats. We're all experiencing the same storm, but actually we're on our own boat and having our own individual experiences. Some sailors are really trained and well, like they've got everything under control, and they're fighting this rough sea, and they've got everything under control. And they're like, okay, I've got this, and they're calm. And you've got other people like, they don't know what to do, they're inexperienced, and they're stressed about how to not tip their boat over, but they're just about floating through. And then it's all about coming together and helping those and getting those lifeboats and helping those people in need. So yeah, I'm quite a visual person, so comparing sort of COVID to a storm essentially kind of helps me process things, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, time for me to go. I've enjoyed doing this little video. I hope it's useful to some people, just discussing the ways I might cope with things and some tips and suggestions, and I'll probably upload some more. So yeah,